in her fight against the party. She is expected in court tomorrow for the continuation of the review of internal charges against her. As you heard there today, a full bench of the Western Cape High Court found that the opposition party's determination that she had ceased to be a member of the DA following those comments made in a radio interview were unlawful. So, where to next for the party, and how damaging might this latest loss be in the eyes of voters? Gareth Van Onselen is with the Institute of Race Relations and joins us now. Gareth, good evening to you, and thank you for talking to us. I mean, we'll talk about some of the specific issues that need to be dealt with, but just from the point of view of perception, I mean, politics is partly about that. How damaging is this whole saga between the DA and Patricia de Lille?
Well, it is damaging. It's never good to have a very messy, convoluted fight inside a political party in which the public can't tell easily who's right and who's wrong. And all that it appears from the outside, because it's so complex, is the DA is at war with itself. That sort of thing turns voters off. It drives up voter apathy. It affects registration, and it will probably definitely, I'm sure it will have a bad effect on the DA's election performance in 2019.
You heard my conversation between my colleague Francis Hurd and Solly Matlatsi. The DA does pride itself on understanding procedure, and all of this seems to have been lost, at least at this point, on procedural fairness.
Yes. Look, there are a few things you need to bear in mind. The first thing is that the DA is appealing this court case, and the High Court doesn't necessarily have the best record in sort of unappealable judgments. Everyone will remember the Chris Nicholson judgment, which had huge political implications but was rubbished by the Supreme Court of Appeals. So we need to see what happens with the appeals process. That said, the DA hasn't offered an argument for what it finds fundamentally problematic with this particular judgment, and until a better argument is put on the table, this thing is going to be damning for the party and its brand as a fair and impartial party.
If you're looking at from their point of view, based on the pronouncements a number of senior leaders have made, they're sort of damned if they do and damned if they don't. They've insisted all along they had to act on the allegations and the information they had against Patricia de Lille.
Yes, well, I would agree with that. I mean, if they have serious evidence that they believe constitutes wrongdoing, both in a political capacity and as the mayor in the city of Cape Town, you are obliged to act on that. And the problem with this whole procedure is that it's become so convoluted and messy that at no point have we actually got to interrogating the evidence against Patricia de Lille. Did she, for example, send that SMS to the MACO member selecting the city manager to instruct her how to score the city manager? We don't know. And those critical facts are being lost in this mess.
But also what we know is that much of what they say they have against her is contained in that Steenhuisen report. And she has insisted repeatedly that she wants the names of the people who've made allegations against her. She said that she wants an open process that the public can also see. If, as you say, there's an obligation on the party to deal with any wrongdoing they may be aware of, why not let that happen? Why be so hasty in dealing with this?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of problems with the way in which the DA has got about it. I have no idea why they are so resistant to giving Patricia de Lille this particular report. I think if you are accused of certain crimes, you should have access to the accusations and to the people who made those accusations in order to be able to fairly counter them. The High Court, as you said, is going to be able to, well, it probably won't judge tomorrow, but it's going to hear arguments, and so the DA will put up its case, but it's very difficult to understand what that is at the moment.
But at the same time, because as you say, we don't know, you've also written that there are in fact some very serious issues to deal with here. I mean, maladministration, malfeasance, those are not light matters.
No, they're not. And part of the problem is that they're separated between a party political investigation and a governance investigation. The city of Cape Town is currently looking into a whole range of allegations against Patricia de Lille to do with malfeasance that Bowman's has said constitute a bona fide case, and we don't know where that investigation is, when it's going to report, or what it's going to find, and it too has been lost in this whole mess. So I think the ultimate consequence of all of this is that the actual allegations against Patricia de Lille haven't been tested or properly interrogated, and the whole thing has been detracted into a procedural mess.
So if we then look at the wider issues that now have arisen around the FLC, for example, and the fact that today we heard the High Court saying it itself wasn't properly constituted. That implies all sorts of things about the decisions they've been making since 2015.
No, that is a profound finding by the High Court, and I think the DA on a matter of principle has to appeal it, because if it is held to be true that the FLC hasn't been properly constituted, and the High Court implied it hasn't been properly constituted going all the way back to 2011, that is a profound legal problem, because it's found in many other issues besides Patricia de Lille, and all those people might well have a case to say, well, if it wasn't constituted for her, it wasn't for me, and I need to have my case relooked.
So it certainly means that all those matters, if it stands at least, might be open to legal challenge.
Well, yes, exactly.
So looking ahead to 2019, I mean, we've seen the ANC in recent days gather members of civil society and all kinds of people help put together its manifesto. The DA, as indeed all parties, should be now focusing on a message, on unity, on whatever appearance it wants to portray to voters ahead of what's going to be a hotly contested election.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the DA had started to make some strides towards doing that. I mean, it had been held back by the Patricia de Lille scandal and a whole series of other things that had plagued the party, a whole lot of internal disputes. And the past week or two it has been focused on jobs and unemployment and what it's delivering in the Western Cape. That whole program has now been set back again, and once again it's having to address internal issues and convoluted internal fights, instead of focusing on the things that matter to voters.
I know this is probably speculative, but where does it leave Patricia de Lille herself? I mean, you know, on the same platform that caused all the trouble today, she refused to answer the question of whether or not she might at some future day say campaign for the ANC. That surely is problematic.
Yes, it's deeply problematic, and I'm sure she'll be keeping all her options open. Whether the ANC will have her is another question, or any other party for that matter, but I think at the moment she's come to the conclusion that practically her relationship with the DA is over. Legally she wants her reputation restored, and she's going to stick around until that happens.
What do parties do, or indeed any other organization? How do they contend with a member they no longer wish to have around?
Well, it's profoundly problematic, and it's not just a problem that affects the DA. I mean, the ANC was stuck with this problem with regards to Jacob Zuma and a number of other candidates for a long period of time. It's very difficult to get rid of a public representative in South Africa, and there are so many avenues open to the aggrieved to pursue procedure and take issue with it, that it's very hard to actually get the matter at hand on the table, and it's something we haven't yet overcome.
You get a call this evening from James Self, Musimaimane, whomever, asking for your advice. What do you say?
Well, I think the most effective political option for the DA is to pass a motion of no confidence in Patricia de Lille and the City Council. It tried to do that once and it failed, just by a whisker. It didn't have enough votes, but it is the most clean-cut, efficient way to get this deal over with. To do that, it's going to have to persuade some councillors in that caucus to change the way they voted last time. I'm sure they're working hard on that now, but that is the quickest way to bring this to a close.
And what might that imply for the DA's chances, particularly in the Western Cape?
Well, it would help. An election and campaign is very good at covering over the sort of cracks that went before. You can have mass communication on television and radio that deliver the good news, so to speak. But in the background, they will still play out these legal processes, which will probably still be a problem for the DA. It will just minimize the damage.
All right, so that was the latest episode. I'm sure there are many more to come in this saga. Gareth Van Onselen is with the Institute of Race Relations. Now, traditional leaders have told